All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making up plays. We talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics never the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, they work in your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.
All right, what is up, everyone? It's another Friday night, so we got another episode of Hoosier Huddle with all three of us this time. Even though I showed up fashionably late, I'm still here. It's 2 weeks in a row, guys.
Back to back.
Write that down.
You got to be careful. I'm going to scare myself off and then may not come back for like months. You never know. Gents, how are y'all tonight?
I'm doing okay. Glad to be on the show. Can't wait to talk some football with Amon and Tony, and just super excited.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I can't wait. Great weekend is coming up, and division round's coming up, so gotta be excited.
This is Amon's second show of the day, so he's going to recycle a lot of material. So
No, nothing like that. It's all fresh. It's all fresh.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. All right, so obviously, as the playoffs, are heating up, different teams are now out of the playoffs, unfortunately. There's a lot of head coaching searches, and I hope to God Mike McCarthy is one of those coaches searching for another job. But, gentlemen, and I'll let whoever wants to go first, go first. If you were a GM of one of these teams, and to me, when I look at some of these teams that are available right now, you have the Raiders, you have the Broncos, you have the Giants, you have the Jaguars,
the Vikings,
the
Texans,
and the Texans. To me, when I look at that, really the only three teams I would even remotely consider wanting to become a head coach of would be the Raiders, the Broncos, and the Vikings. I feel like there's enough talent in all three of those cities and enough of those spots that you could come in, you can make an immediate impact no matter really who you are. Whereas if, you're going to New York, if you're going to Jacksonville, if you're going to Texans, you got a lot that you have to do in a short amount of time to try to make it work. So for you guys, what would be the top three qualities you would look for when you're searching for your head coach?
Wow. Amon, I'll leave that to you first if you want. Go ahead.
Sure. First off, I think for me, coming off of this season, maybe a little bit biased, but the way Dan Campbell came in, I think, do players play for you, right? Do players really want to get up and stand there and say, I want to play for you? They don't have to like you. Not everyone likes Bill Belichick at times, but they'll go out there and they'll play for Bill Belichick. So I think that's number one. Do players play for you wherever you are? Number two, I want to know what's your plan. I want to know, do our ideologies kind of match up? Because if I'm Miami, I'm not hiring a coach that doesn't have two on their plan, right? So I want to know, do our ideologies match up, and do we kind of align of what we want to do for the future? Now, you can't really get a plan going until you're in the building, but you have to have some reminiscence of what you want to do once you're here. And then I think for me, it's like, what is your specialty? What do you do really, really well? Like Sean McVay came in, he was a tremendous offensive guy, so you can implement that right away. Bill Belichick, tremendous defensive guy. There's some guys who are really good finding talent. There are guys really good at getting people to want to come play. What is your specialty? And I think you have to have some kind of specialty to get, or at least for me, to hire you to be, okay, you have that something in you. So I think those three to me just stand out amongst all of them.
Okay.
I mean, those are all sensible answers, and they all make sense. And I'm sure that's probably on the checklist of a lot of GMs looking around the league for head coaches. To me, one thing is, you have to have a coach who's willing to hear the word no and willing to say the word no. Not every idea is a good one, whether you come up with it or whether people come to you with it. You can't be afraid to tell people, you know what, I just don't think that works, and no. And also, you implement something. You go to your coaches with something and say, well, I was thinking about this. And they say, well, actually, coach, we don't see that working. And not being afraid and thinking, well, I'm your boss and you have to do it this way. That's not how this works. Like, we like to think of the head coach like Vince Lombardi. That's not what head coaches are anymore. So in that regard, that's one. Number two is, I want somebody who doesn't always stick to the plan. There's a great adage in boxing. It says everybody has a plan until they get knocked out. Well, in NFL games, I don't care who you are, you're going to get knocked out. And if you just stick to the same old plan, like, well, this is who we are as a team, like the Mike McCarthy's of the world, and this is who we are, and this is what we're going to do, and I'm not going to apologize for anything. Well, you're going to face adversity, and you have to be able to adapt, whether that's delegating to the right people, knowing how to rally the troops, kind of how you said, Amon, people playing for you, things of that sort. That's really important to me if I'm a GM, somebody who not only has a plan, but isn't afraid to go off when it doesn't work and not just stick to it for the sense of like, well, this is the way it is and that's the way it's going to stay. It doesn't always work that way. Third, to me, kind of something Amon touched on is adaptability, because you're going to have 53-man rosters, 12-man practice squads, 90-man training camps. You're going to have all different kinds of coaches, all different kinds of people coming in and out of your ear. You have to be able to adjust and adapt to people's personalities, to everything like that. I think sometimes we see the straight lace. Like when I see Matt Patricia in a suit, it doesn't look great because that's not him. But they go in the interview and they do it and they dress all nice. It's like, that's not who you are. Like you have to have some honesty about yourself, and you have to adapt to all the different things that come into being a head coach. So to me, those are just some real basic things that I would look for in head coaches. And I think when you look at it, there's a lot of coaches who are missing some of those things.
Yeah, I'd agree. For me, I would say flexibility is going to be the biggest thing. Hey, if I'm a general manager, I'm going to look at my head coach and I would tell them, hey, I'm going to give you 4 to 5 years. But my big thing that I also want to see too, I want to see you progress. If we lose, 3-4 games, not lose. If we only win 3 or 4 games the first couple seasons, depending on what we have. Okay, I can work with that, but I expect you to be better the next year. Not saying you got to go out and, get me a Super Bowl the next year, but at least make it interesting. If we can get up to 500, if we can get above 500, fantastic. I know that what you're doing is working, and I want to continue to see progression. Again, not saying I expect a Super Bowl in 5 years, but I want to see that I know this team is heading in the right direction if I hired you. And the same thing with adaptability. I don't want a coach that's going to be like, okay, we're going to come out, we're going to run the ball. If we don't run the ball and it stops working, okay, now we're going to throw the ball 40 times and we're going to put the game in the hands of the quarterback, which, with the exception of a handful of teams, you can't really do that. And then I like what Dustin put here. The first question you should ask as a head coach candidate is their thoughts about the quarterback. Do you feel you can win with that, or what is your plan to get us to win? Yes and no, because again, to me as a head coach, that's part of that adaptability and that flexibility, and again that progress. Like I would almost take Washington for example. Washington knows they have a solid coach in Ron Rivera, and Ron Rivera hired a very good guy in Jack Del Rio to run his defense. Now, offensively, he's kind of had to just make it work with whatever he has. He started with Dwayne Haskins, then he went to Alex Smith, and he went to Heineke. And then he got Ryan Fitzpatrick, and then he basically had to stick with Heineke the entire time, and then occasionally Kyle Allen. So I mean, but he managed to make it work. They won 7 games again, 2 years in a row, which realistically they still have a losing record, but that's not terrible. Like you're at least showing that, hey, we can be consistent. We're just a few pieces to be able to work and continue to move. Dustin also did bring up a good point. I forgot about Miami. Miami would also be a really good spot that I would go to. I just think the big question is probably what everybody's question is Tua, the offensive line, and a run game, because they have a lot of money in the defense, which is great, and they have a lot of available cap money. They need to spend some protection for Tua, and they need a good running back to be able to at least support him to see if Tua really is going to be the person that we think he's going to be, or at least that I hope he is anyway. And speaking of, so obviously, as we're getting closer throughout the playoffs and all these majority of these quarterbacks that are in, they pretty much are all in contention for the offensive player of the year, or even, the MVP. Should the NFL ban quarterbacks from the offensive player of the year, since they almost always have the MVP category locked up? Or like, I know I kind of mentioned it when we were talking about this question. Do you guys think that there really shouldn't, you can make an argument for an MVP, but do you think that MVP should also be on the caliber with the same thing as the best quarterback? Because you think about it, if you take a team, so take a team like Dallas, you could very easily say that Micah Parsons or Trevon Diggs was the MVP for Dallas, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You can make an argument in Cincinnati that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase should be co-MVPs because of the difference that they've made simply just there. So, we've seen different players be able to elevate an entire team. And I do agree. I don't think that the quarterback should always be the immediate front runner because, you think about it. When you say MVP and you look at quarterbacks, as much as I don't like the dude, I have to say Aaron Rodgers. And I only say that. I know. And the only reason I say that is because I can't wait for the Jordan Love era to start in Green Bay. It's going to be a beautiful, gorgeous thing, and I am so excited for it. Because legitimate, think about it. You take that Green Bay roster without Aaron Rodgers, where does it go?
Not far.
Into the top 10 first picks of the NFL draft. That's where it goes. But but I do agree. I think quarterbacks kind of have a monopoly on it when it's like, the quarterback is an integral part. Like, obviously, you need a good quarterback if you really want to succeed and move far, but I don't necessarily always think that the quarterback is the MVP of the absolute team at all times. Amon, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. And I think me and Joe were talking about this in the private chat. He put out the stat that 19 of the 63 MVPs have been non-quarterbacks. So they had 1 kicker, 2 defensive players, and 16 running back winners. And Joe Burrow won 3 of those. Not Joe Burrow, but Jim Brown won 3 of those. Yeah. Jim Brown, another JB in Cleveland, Ohio, getting confusing. But Jim Brown won 3 of those. So, the quarterback has a monopoly of it. And I don't think necessarily the quarterback should be banned from the Offensive Player of the Year. But if a quarterback has won MVP, I don't think there should be another quarterback that's in contention for the Offensive Player of the Year. I think they got to spread that around to different positions. I think if you ban a quarterback from winning the Offensive Player of the Year, then it's basically now, okay, it's just the best quarterback in the league, and there's no other position that's going to be able to win it. So to me, I think you don't allow the Offensive Player of the Year to be a quarterback if a quarterback has already won the MVP. And I'm hoping that one of these times we're going to see a non-quarterback, whoever it is. I don't know who's going to break it. It wasn't Derrick Henry last year, which was disappointing. J.J. Watt didn't win in 2014, which I'll forever be mad about. But hopefully one of these days it's going to be someone else at MVP. But like I said, an Offensive Player of the Year shouldn't be a quarterback if the MVP is a quarterback.
Thank you for stealing all my hard work and research, Amon. That's great. I put all that out there. I'm ready to throw out these numbers. And Amon's like, oh, by the way.
I gave you credit for it. I gave you credit for it. Don't worry.
Okay. Well,
the public knows it's all you.
He did give you credit. You just have nothing to really back up.
I have no talking
did
points.
Your research and that you know what you're talking about.
Thank God I've got my brain. No, listen. Okay, we don't want to use the word ban, but right now, what does somebody have to do to usurp a quarterback in the MVP conversation? We know it's not 2,000 yards because Derrick Henry finished 4th in MVP voting after a 2,000-yard season. We know it's not a defensive player because J.J. Watt didn't win in 2014. So even though there's no rule against non-quarterbacks winning MVP, we know that the voters lean towards quarterbacks. So yes, we don't want to put the word ban on Offensive Player of the Year, but we can kind of come to an agreement where it's like, hey, guys, of course, quarterbacks are going to put up huge numbers. Can we look at some other guys? Can we look at a Cooper Kupp who won the Triple Crown? Can we look at Jonathan Taylor who did this? I think it's one of those just untalked about open secrets that everybody can kind of come to agreement to where it's like, all right, great. Tom Brady broke the passing yards record. Did he have 6,000 yards? No. Okay, then it doesn't matter. I just think it has to be something like that because – of those players that you talked about, Amon, the great, fabulous research done by our crack staff here, of those 19 players, when you take out, like you said, when you take out Jim Brown with 3 times winning 3 of the first, I think it was 8, I think 2 of the first 3, as a matter of fact, it's gaps. It's these huge gaps. Mark Mosley won in 1980, I think it was, for the strike shortened season because he's a kicker. 2 defensive players, Alan Page and Lawrence Taylor. Really? We don't have any other defensive players? Jerry Rice doesn't have one? We've never had a receiver win it? Randy Moss's rookie year or something? Didn't he get some consideration? We talked about Micah Parsons with, I didn't, but some people did with him Defensive Player of the Year. Well, I could argue that Randy Moss had a bigger impact on that Vikings team in his rookie year than Micah Parsons did for the defense. So, again, I think it's one of those things no, they don't want to come out and say that they won't give it anymore. But if you see a few years of voting where it's like, wow, the quarterbacks really aren't getting many votes for Offensive Player of the Year, we can all kind of just agree to disagree.
Yeah, and I agree. And I don't know about you guys, but if you look at the last couple of years that we've seen NFL quarterbacks play, it's not the same numbers that I remember from like 10 years ago
Yeah.
when, it was like if you were having a good season or an average season, you still threw for like 4,000 to 4,500 yards. Now it's like, oh, hey, most quarterbacks are throwing like 3,500 yards, 3,000, that's the like, that's kind of up there. And it's like, really? Or even the same with the touchdown amount. Look at how many times, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. It's like, oh yeah, we threw at least 40 touchdowns in a season. Now it's like, yeah, I threw like 30. And then it's like that was like your middle of the pack, like not necessarily bottom feeder teams, but that was, your lower echelon of NFL teams that would do these type of statistics. And that's honestly probably ironically the last time a non-quarterback won the MVP in Adrian Peterson, which is crazy to think. And TJ Watt is another one that I think should probably have also gotten considered for an MVP because, he tied Michael Strahan's record. And a lot of people, I think, are going to discredit, oh, well, he had 17 games. Yeah, but he only played 14 of them?
Yeah.
But he ended up playing in 16. I think he didn't finish all of them, but he did play in 16 games.
Yeah. Now, do you guys think that do you think this is one of the few times the NFL should mirror college? And do you think that they should have a best award position for every, or best player position or best player award for every position? Like, hey, who's the best quarterback out of all 32 teams? Who's the best running back out of all 32 teams? Like, and then basically have them on an equal playing field like that. Because you are right. If we have one dude winning 3 of the MVPs in NFL history is a running back, we've had no wide receiver, and especially in a wide receiver like Jerry Rice. Think about it. This dude caught over 22,000 yards, played almost 20 seasons, multiple different teams, has every single statistical category as far as touchdowns, yards, catches, everything by wide receiver and tight end, and did it for so long. Like, to be honest, unless we have some crazy feat, we're not going to see a wide receiver break that. Not for a long, long time. And even in a league now that's more offensive heavy than when Jerry played.
Yeah.
And the fact that he never won. So do you guys think that it should be broken down like who's the best at this specific position each year? And then this is going to be kind of like our all-star team of like, these were the best players for this particular year.
Yeah. This is an idea I had tinkered around with on my pod and stuff. We're going to do it at the end of the season. But basically, like you said, it's the college awards. It's the Walter Camp Award. It's the Buckus Award winner, the Outland Trophy winner. The Johnny Unitas Quarterback of the Year, the Jim Brown Running Back of the Year, the Jerry Rice Wide Receiver of the Year, the Deacon Jones Pass Rusher of the Year, whatever you want to call them. And listen, nobody likes putting themselves on TV for all the players in the NFL. That's why they still have the garbage Pro Bowl and stuff like that. You're telling me you couldn't have a 2-hour award show built around the stories of these all-time great players for awards, and the ones who are still alive can help hand them out or send messages, stuff like that? Why not? Like, all you're doing is getting more eyes on the sport, and you're recognizing more of your elite talent. And it goes year by year. You can be the best wide receiver one year, and the next year you're not even nominated. Like, that's fine, but it gets more eyes on the sport, and it gets more exposure.
Yeah,
I completely agree.
Nope, sorry. I was waiting. I was like, is he going to go? Or you want me to go?
No, but I completely agree with that because I think in college too, you hear about different guys that you wouldn't really hear because there's so many players in college, and then you hear them get nominated for the best tight end. The kid out of Georgia, everyone's saying, how did he not get nominated? The tight end from there. So you get to hear about some of these other players that you might not see play. And to Joe's point, it's a great marketing experience too for the NFL because you can get all these guys who are still alive. They can come hand out the awards. You're able to split these up and do different things. It'll be a first, so now people want to tune in because it's a first. I think it's a darn cool idea, and I think again, exposure wise, marketing presence, and then it just gives all around more exposure to everybody and passes the flowers around to everyone who deserves it. Like Cooper Kupp, who probably might win Offensive Player of the Year, should win Offensive Player of the Year, should get an MVP nomination. Probably won't get an MVP nomination. Now at least he, walks at home with the Jerry Rice Wide Receiver Award, which would be darn cool. And again, it just spreads the flowers to everybody who deserves to have the flowers.
Yeah. And kind of to your point, if you look at college, look at how many college programs there are. There's over 126, college programs just in Division One.
Yeah.
And then, and then you have what 70, 90 players for every college roster. I mean, you have thousands of kids, and it's like, okay, you only have a handful of awards for each position. And it's like, with the exception of, quarterback, okay, where's that probably going to go? Maybe Alabama, more than likely, or offensive line is probably going to go to Alabama. Whereas, you come into the NFL, okay, you may not, you were a part of that big team and you can, shine there. But you look at some of these guys that maybe come from like smaller schools, look at Adam Thielen. Like Adam Thielen could win a Jerry Rice, wide receiver of the year. And the dude just walked on to the Minnesota Vikings field. Like, that I agree. I think it would give a better opportunity for people that, maybe didn't get the big, the national spotlight fame that they got because, colleges, sometimes colleges don't really want to take a chance on you either, but you go to an NFL team and you prove yourself and, hey, Adam Thielen is this, star wide receiver, in college. Did any of us ever hear of Cooper Kupp?
No.
Nope.
I mean, we talk about the Heisman push, these guys that are preseason favorites, and then they fall off by the wayside. So now we have to glom on to somebody else. The NFL is the most popular sport in the Western Hemisphere and in parts of the Eastern Hemisphere. We know what's going on. We know who the best wide receiver this year was. We know who's going to win. Now there's some debate as to you get into offensive linemen, cornerbacks, defensive backs, things of that sort. But again, we know. So now it's the presentation. Think of it like the Oscars or the Grammys. We know Beyonce is going to win 10 Grammys, but we're still going to tune in because we want to see her grab that trophy. We want to see Jonathan Taylor be handed the Jim Brown trophy. We want to see this year. You could debate Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, whoever. That's a little bit closer, but we want to see Cooper Kupp get that Jerry Rice Award. That's the fun of it.
Yeah, I'd 100% agree. All right, so moving on. So since it is, we're in the NFL offseason, we've already seen teams start to do this. They may or may not see some playoff teams even start to do it, depending on what happens at the end of this playoffs. Obviously, there's a lot of speculation: is Aaron Rodgers going to stay in Green Bay? Is Russell Wilson going to stay in Seattle? Are they going to demand trades? Are they going to want to leave? Where are they going to go? Joe, I'm going to start with you first. What team do you think should, quote, blow it up in the offseason and just completely start over from scratch, from offense to defense, everything?
This one's an easy one for me because they started last year. It's the Seattle Seahawks. Listen, you traded away 2 first-round picks for a guy who doesn't have an actual position. He's a linebacker masquerading as a safety. He's a safety masquerading as a linebacker. I mean, we're not in basketball. This isn't positionless defense. You have to excel at one spot. He does a lot of things well, but he doesn't excel your team to the next level. This isn't a guy who comes in and all of a sudden that Seahawks defense is like, oh, we're top 5 now. So to me, they started it last year. Right now, they'd have the 10th pick in the draft. That seems kind of important for a team that is, up against the cap and needs some help on the offensive line. But they don't have that now. So to me, Russell Wilson, bye. Not a fan. I'm sorry. I wouldn't want to trade for him. Somebody brought up the trade. It would be like Derek Carr and a number 1 pick from the Raiders. I wouldn't give that up if I was the Raiders. I'm not doing that. That to me is a horrible trade. Russell Wilson has not shown that he can consistently lead an average roster to the playoffs and beyond. He just hasn't. When he has an all-time great defense, he can. Other than that, he can't. Sorry if you're watching, Pride. I know you hate my Russell Wilson take, but I don't care. This is a team with the oldest head coach in the NFL, with a quarterback who keeps flirting with the transfer portal in the NFL. Oh, well, I'm not really interested in getting traded, but if I were interested in getting traded, these are the teams I might be interested in. Come on. Seattle just needs to just reset, do this all over again. You've got some nice pieces, in the wide receiver room. Penny looks like a steal for a running back, a guy going in next year who's going to get a lot of clout. I mean, I'm sorry. It's time for Seattle to blow it up.
What about you, Amon?
I would go to the New York Giants. And I know that lawsuit isn't going to get any friendlier if they try to blow it up once again and it doesn't work. But the New York Giants are just a mess and a half, right? And you talk about now is the perfect time because you're going to get a new GM, you're going to get a new head coach, you got a clean slate, and you can move off of Daniel Jones, you can move off of some of these contracts that you've given to Kenny Galladay and all the other big-time players that you've tried to pay. You're not going to bring any of the receivers back. I think they said they're not going to bring Sterling Shepard back. You can move off if you want to keep James Bradbury, you can, or you can move off of him and just continue to get cheaper, continue to get younger. You have negative cap space. You have negative $5 million in cap space. So you got to find some ways to move things around. This team is not a team that's going to win or even compete in the worst division in football. And when you can't compete in the NFC East, you're in a bad spot. You need a new quarterback. You might need to restructure Saquon's deal if he can't stay healthy either. They have a lot of holes. And again, with the new GM and the new head coach coming in, they have no ties to anybody in the building in uniform. To me, this is the perfect time to go ahead, blow it up, try to move off of some pieces, and just get younger and cheaper and see what you can do in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I'd agree with both of you guys. I will say for the Russell Wilson, and everybody's made, and I make this argument mainly, with Aaron Rodgers more than anybody is. It's hard, even if you are a good quarterback, to overcome a really crappy defense. Like, you can be great, but a lot of times, and we even saw it with Patrick Mahomes a few years ago in the playoffs against the Patriots. It just came down to who had the ball last, basically. And to me, it's hard for quarterbacks to be able to overcome that. When it's like, all right, I've thrown for 400 yards, I've thrown for 5 touchdowns, no picks, but my defense has given up like 56 points. Like what do you kind of do at that point? Now, Amon, I will say, I think the New York Giants have already blown it up. I feel like when they got rid of Dave Gettleman and Joe Judge, that was the worst thing the Giants could have ever done for their organization. As a Cowboys fan, I am deeply upset that they did that. I felt like they were moving in the right direction, and I am upset. In actual seriousness, though, I feel like now they've got the little like kindling to start to blow up, and they've lit the match with the person that they hired today. And I'm just waiting for it to happen. That's the Carolina Panthers. And yeah, Joe, you knew as soon as I said it.
As soon as you said who they hired today,
Yeah, because and in case anybody doesn't know, the Carolina Panthers hired Ben McAdoo as their offensive coordinator. Like, really? You hired Ben McAdoo as your OC? Come on, man. I don't want to get trademarked by ESPN, but come on, man. Like, really?
Hiring Ben McAdoo as your offensive coordinator is like hiring Jack the Ripper as your strength and conditioning coach. It's just not going to end well.
Right, because like you look at Carolina right now. Carolina is in such a bad spot because where do they go at quarterback? Where do they go? You brought Cam Newton back thinking, hey, maybe it'll work. It didn't work. You luckily traded like peanuts for Sam Darnold. So you didn't get a crap ton of, you didn't, get a massive contract for him. You didn't have to give away, a first round or like 2 first-round picks for him. So you got him cheap. He didn't work out. And then you've got PJ Walker from the XFL, which, I mean, he did decent on a struggling Panthers team, but this was a team that a couple, not last season, but season before last, they were a great young defense. They had an incredible draft. You got Brian Burns. You got Jeremy Chin. You have all the key pieces for a good, young, strong defense. Offensively is where you're at question, though. You don't know what you're doing at quarterback. There's talks they'll trade Christian McCaffrey because of his injury history. And I don't necessarily think that's a lot of Christian's fault, because when has he really had a good offensive line? He hasn't. And looking at the last couple of years, the fact that the Carolina Panthers really haven't improved at all. If anything, they've regressed since Matt Rule took over as head coach. And the fact that you let Joe Brady go, which was kind of surprising. I mean, he didn't do a lot for Carolina. He did really well for LSU, which honestly, if I'm Cincinnati, I'm like, hey, Joe, want to come back and work with other Joe and your boys from LSU? And since he's at least on the uprise at this point, like, Joe, you might go consider him. Just throwing it out there. But to me, I think Carolina needs to go ahead and push the button. The fact that Matt Rule has had such a bad 2 seasons, he's 0-6 against all the other coaches that actually got fired in the offseason, which how you managed to do that, I don't know.
That's my favorite stat. That's my favorite stat this year. It really
right.
is.
I'm like, wait, and he's not fired? Like, everybody else got fired, but this guy didn't. Carolina.
Just if McCarthy gets fired, he will then be 0-7.
Just a cherry on top.
I hope both those things happen just for that.
Just FYI, if McCarthy gets fired, it'd be 0-7.
0-7. Wow. But yeah, to me, Carolina is one of those. A couple years ago with how they looked when they first brought in Matt Rule, they looked like the team that was going to be perfect to be able to at least be in contention for the NFC South. Didn't think they were going to win it. You still had to do with New Orleans, who is kind of a little bit shaky. Which to me, I think New Orleans needs to blow it up because you want to talk about being under the cap. Oh my God, they owe me money. Like they're still under the cap. They owe me money at this point. Like,
the sad part about Carolina is too, they're almost like the Dollar Tree version of the Denver Broncos. They have a lot of good defensive pieces. They've got a nice wide receiver room. They've got some talent in certain places. Right tackle. I think Tyler Moton or Taylor Moton. I think they signed to the franchise tag last year and then signed the extension. So they've got some nice pieces, but they just can't figure it out. I mean, when you got the owner in the second year of a contract, basically walking around to anybody with a microphone and saying, I'm the biggest idiot in the world for giving this guy a 7-year deal. Like, how's it going, Bob? Not great. Like, it's not good at all.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing I've never understood with some of these franchises. You look at Gruden. He had a 10-year deal. You look at Rule, that's a 7-year deal. Look at the Texans. They had a 5-year deal with Cully, and they're like, yeah, you're fired after one season, my guy.
Which is just atrocious, yeah.
Right? Like that to me, like I don't get franchises like Cleveland and Detroit. They're like, oh, we're gonna fire a coach after one season. Okay, that's really dumb. I don't know why you would ever do that. That's really freaking dumb. But then I also don't get these organizations that are like, yeah, you know what? We're going to stick with Matt Rule for 7 years. You're going to stay 7 years. 7.
Hot take, Matt Rule does not make it to year 7 of that.
That's sizzling right there. Sizzling hot take out here in North Carolina. Let me go to the streets right now and see.
Hot take, Amon has a better chance of being the head coach of the Carolina Panthers in 7 years than Matt Rule.
I saw I don't know why it makes me think of this. I saw this meme that was a mock post of a thing from the LinkedIn, and it was like the Minnesota Gophers offensive coordinator, and it says when you're not really qualified for the job. So I posted my NCAA 14 resume.
Ooh, I like him.
Right? Like,
7-year deal. Here you go.
He took Alabama to the playoffs 6 years in a row and won 6 national championships. This man is my new head coach. Absolutely.
It's something about you were talking about with the Giants, though, Amon. It's interesting because you said about reworking Saquon's deal. The problem is that he's going to want a deal. He's coming off his rookie deal, and he's going to want a big money deal online with guys like Kamara and all that. I wouldn't touch that guy with a 10-foot pole and Freddie pushing. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, I'm not investing any money in that guy long term.
Yeah, not with that kind of injury history. When he's on the field, he's a talent, but I need him on the field. It's just like Christian McCaffrey. When he's on the field, he's someone you got to watch for, but I need you on the field to be able to give you that kind of money. And with Saquon Barkley, unfortunately for him, throughout his rookie deal, he hasn't been on the field. At least McCaffrey made it to the time they gave him a contract. Saquon hasn't.
Yeah. But I mean, for him, I kind of say the same thing. The Giants haven't had an O-line in like 11 years.
Yeah. Like
they haven't had an O-line since they won the Super Bowl. Like that was the last time they had an offensive line. And that to me, and that's why, and we may touch into this a little bit later. That's why I'm not necessarily upset when different offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators, are going for these head coaching jobs, and when, they don't get them. Like if the New York Giants hire another person like Joe Judge, some random Joe Blow schmo coach that nobody has heard of until they decided to hire them. Like if they do that, I'm not going to be upset because I don't want Eric Bieniemy to go to the Giants, because what do you have to work with? You have nothing. You don't have an O-line. You paid over $70 million for a wide receiver that didn't have a touchdown catch, but your offensive lineman did. Wow. You have an insanely talented running back that, again, on the field, you can't beat him, but he's got to stay healthy, and you don't have an O-line. And then, of course, you have Mr. Turnover himself, Daniel Jones.
White Lightning.
Right, yeah, White Lightning. That's right. Like
the man from Duke. Can't beat it.
Hey, Duke's known for their quarterbacks. Like
I know, man. I see them all the time.
They just fired Cutcliffe this season, or who was it? Is it Cutcliffe down there? I think he got let go this offseason too.
Yeah, Yeah, and all of it was just because he was, what was it? His quarterback trainer is the same guy that trained Peyton and Eli.
Peyton and them were friends, which just goes to show that Peyton and Manning are just they're Agent Smith in the Matrix. They're up to no good, and they're infecting everywhere with just stuff that you don't even realize.
My goodness.
Yeah, and I mean, think about it. And I know we kind of reach a little bit like for because and I think we talked about this last show with Archie Manning. Everybody makes him out to be this great quarterback. He wasn't. He was with the Saints. He really wasn't. But you look at Peyton. Peyton lived and breathed football ever since he was a kid. He had a little bit of kind of, I guess, natural talent that he worked on, and he continued to progress. And then Eli was just kind of a good old boy that, just loved to sling a pigskin around because he's a good old country boy. It's what they like to do. Him and Brett Favre both. So I can't really knock the dude for that. But it's you can't take, oh, well, I trained Peyton and Eli. Did you? Did you? I get it. You had a hand, but you can't take sole credit for Eli and Peyton being the way that Eli and Peyton are. That'd be like Tom Brady's, quarterback coach. Yep, that's my boy. I'm going to go get a head coaching job because I trained Tom Brady.
You just described Bill O'Brien, just so you know.
Texans fans screaming in the chat.
Right? Hey, he was great GM for the Texans. He traded DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson.
Yeah. Man, what a move.
And a second.
Steal.
Yes, and a second round pick.
Nobody was walking around Seattle in the 90s saying, no, I'm the defensive coach for the Seattle Supersonics. Gary Payton learned everything he did from me. It's no, not really. It's you don't get to take that credit. Exactly. I'm on the Supersonics were a basketball franchise in Seattle. I know you're young, but that was actually a real thing.
I remember the Supersonics. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and because I was thinking about that earlier. I was like, man, if I'm them, don't go to the Giants. And what's the other one that I would just don't go to Jacksonville. Those are the two I'd stay away from. No way. Anyway, we'll move on. So it is the divisional round, and really marquee matchups. Ironically, I was looking at the weather for all of the games. All of them are going to be in the 40s and 50s, except for Green Bay. Green Bay is going to be 5 degrees. Right? But you know what I'm ready for? Aaron Rodgers is 0-3 against San Francisco in the playoffs. I need him to be 0-4.
That is the most overused stat this week. And I'm not criticizing, but that's everybody's Aaron Rodgers MVP of the league. Well, he's 0-3 against San Francisco in the playoffs, right? 0-3. 0-3. 0-3.
0-3.
It's two of those are Kaepernick, right? Two of them were Kaepernick.
Doesn't matter. Hey, he got beat by Jimmy G too, so how's it any worse? He got beat by the handsome quarterback that made mincemeat of Dallas's defense last week.
That 16 pass rating in the second half, just
money, just G money.
He's learning from Daniel Jones. He spent time with that quarterback coach.
Hey, and Daniel Jones learned from the best. He's on par with Eli. He even looks like Eli. That's why they drafted him.
Yeah, it is.
What would happen if you put Eli Manning in a taffy puller? Oh, you'd get Daniel Jones.
Go to Willy Wonka Chocolate Factory and just get it going,
He's all stretched out and he keeps dropping everything.
It's dexterity. He's just got to grow into his body.
He's tripping over himself. He's awkward. He's a growing boy.
All right, we've got playoff games. I'm going to
yes. All right, Joe, you start first. Who do you have winning what game this weekend?
All right. I had the Rams initially winning against Tampa Bay. I do not like that pick now. Andrew Whitworth, the left tackle, out. Taylor Rapp, the safety, out. As much as I'm concerned because Brashad Perryman is out, Ronald Jones is out for Tampa Bay, I do think that they're probably going to get Leonard Fournette back. I think that they're going to be able to piece enough together. And I'm sorry, I don't trust Stafford 2 games in a row. I just don't. He had a really good game, and I'm waiting for that bonehead play. And I think it's going to come against the pressure. I do think that Whitworth was playing really well, and it was kind of he was going to be able to handle the outside rush, But now that you're going to have to take away from that, I'm not crazy about that. I mean, Vita Vea makes guys look stupid, and Ndamukong Suh, Shaq Barrett, all these guys, JPP. I just think it's going to be a long day for the Rams, and I think Tampa Bay is going to win. The Titans versus Bengals, I had this as my highest scoring game of the weekend. I think this is actually going to be the best game of the weekend. Derrick Henry, of course, is back, been activated. I think Cincinnati's going to win it because I think the Titans are going to lose it. I think you're going to see a back-and-forth game, and I just think that Tannehill is going to make a mistake, or they're just not going to be able to move the ball in the fourth quarter. But I think this game is going to be close, but I think it's going to be high-scoring. Chiefs at Bills, I mean, geez, oh, man. On paper, this is the game of the year, in the playoffs matchup, AFC Championship from last year. As much as my co-host, he's a Bills fan, I hate him right now, I'm going to have to go with the Chiefs. I just think – it's really hard to beat a team twice in the same year, especially a team with as much experience as the Chiefs. And I just think they're playing really well right now. And I'm concerned for that Buffalo offensive line handling the Chiefs pass rush, especially the interior stuff. And the last game, the Packers versus 49ers, I'm really sorry, Tony and Mike, you're somewhere out there in the universe. Every time Jordan Love is brought up, Mike gets his wings, but I think it's the Packers, and I think it's in a blowout. I think it's not going to be close at all.
Wow. Okay. All right, Amon, what do you think?
So for the Titans and the Bengals, I also went with Cincinnati. The Titans' pass coverage has not been great this season at all. And I just think Joe Burrow has been on a tear. We've seen it, and I think him and Jamar Chase are going to keep it going. They have T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. Weapons go on. And then Derrick Henry coming back after a long time. Can he handle running it 35 times in this game, which I think they're going to need him to do for them to win, because I don't trust Ryan Tannehill, to Joe's point, to really make those plays. So they're going to need him to be that guy. Can he be that guy? I don't know. Just too many question marks there. Give me Cincinnati in that game. The Packers and the 49ers, you know what? I just want to have some fun, so I'm going to pick San Francisco. I'm just ready for it. I think I'm with Tony here. I'm ready for that Jordan Love era to start. Look,
that's what I'm talking about, Amon. That's what I'm talking about.
Look, in all honesty, I think that the pass rush from the San Francisco 49ers can get to Aaron Rodgers. And I think when you look at these games in the past, you've seen the pass rush play a big factor. And then also the Niners' ability to run the football. The Packers' run defense has struggled and has looked bad at times. And oftentimes they play with the lead and they don't have to worry about it. But if the Niners can get to a run game early, if they can get to Deebo Samuel and Elijah Mitchell, I think they could really make it tough for the Packers defense and put them in a spot they haven't been in all year. And I'm just going to pick the upset. I'm going to pick the Niners to go ahead and beat the Green Bay Packers. Then you got the Chiefs and the Bills. I'm also going the upset there. I'm going Buffalo. Joe mentioned that it's hard to beat a team twice. Well, they already did it against our New England Patriots last week. They looked real good. They didn't punt the ball. They scored a touchdown every single time until the kneel downs. And Kansas City looked real good too. They threw 5 touchdown passes. And I think this is, for me, my game of the week. I think it's all going to be really close. I think it's going to be about which defense makes the big stop. I think Buffalo's defense is going to. I think their secondary has been very good with Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer back there. And then I think for Buffalo, they have finally started to run the football. They've handed it off to David Singletary over 12 times a game for the past 4 games. Josh Allen has been running the football 6 to 10 times, and I think that'll neutralize some of the pass rush from Kansas City. And then I think Josh Allen's just going to make some big-time plays. I think Buffalo gets their revenge on Kansas City. And then with the Bucs and the Rams, this game's interesting to me because of the Tristan Wirfs injury. I think that's really, for me, what it hinges on. And he did practice today, him and center Ryan Jensen. I think Ryan Jensen is going to play. But Wirfs has been one of the best right tackles in football since the day he got drafted. The Giants somehow missed on him at number 4, and they drafted Andrew Thomas, who was a lineman who caught the touchdown pass, and not Kenny Galladay. But to me, that's the big injury. But I don't bet against Tom Brady. That's the one thing I've learned while being a Patriots fan. You don't bet against Tom Brady. And again, with the Andrew Whitworth injury, I think it's just more reason that Matthew Stafford is going to make that boneheaded throw. He's going to feel some pressure from JPP on the edge, and he's going to try to throw it up and force it to Odell. And the secondary's been healthy. Antoine Winfield, he's a beast in the back end. He always is around the ball. And they stopped the run really well last weekend since they got some of the pieces back. I think the Bucs are going to go ahead and handle the Rams as well. So that is my picks for the divisional round.
Okay. I like it. Yeah, I think, to me, I feel like all of the matchups are really good, to be honest with you. And I really don't have a favorite in any of these matchups, because I feel like these are the matchups now that, if we look at last week, they're obviously, and like I said, I still believe the Chiefs should be on trial for murdering Big Ben and the Steelers, like they did last week, like we figured they were going to do. But like, I actually I am going to go with one upset. I'm going to go with Cincy over the Titans, and I say that because I think Cincy has good enough secondary to be able to shut down AJ Brown. Julio is kind of non-existent, and we've seen when that happens, Ryan Tannehill struggles. And like you guys said, Derrick Henry's going to come back. He can't handle 30 touches. This is going to be a slow kind of increment back in. I see him maybe getting 15, 20 carries, kind of depending on how he's feeling. And I think Cincinnati just right now, they're hot. They're gonna roll. They're gonna be rolling into it, and I think they move on to the AFC Championship. I am gonna go with the Chiefs versus the Bills. I only say that because of how much the Bills have struggled this year as a whole. Like the Bills lost some games that you were kind of like, really, Buffalo, you lost type thing, and I feel like again. I think they need a little bit of a wide receiver vamp. Emmanuel Sanders is old. Cole Beasley's old. Stephon Diggs is your number one, which is great. All you really got to do is cover that number one, and you're pretty much solid. And they don't have a very great run game, which is, again, surprising because they have a fantastic defense. But, again, they struggled even having that. So I'm going to take the Bengals. I'm going to take the Chiefs. The Bucks versus the Rams. So I know you guys are both Patriots fans, but did you know every time Tom Brady has faced Matt Stafford, at least in the regular season, and beaten him, he's gone on to win the Super Bowl?
Interesting. Well, see, he doesn't play in New England anymore, so I'm not sure of the gentleman you're talking about.
Obviously. But I do agree, though. I mean, you look at what Philly was able to do to Tampa Bay. They still lost. But, I mean, the Eagles gave Tampa Bay probably one of the bigger runs for their money than I thought that they were going to give. I thought it actually ended up being a really good game, and I think the Eagles are actually going to be a lot farther along than people would probably think. But, Tampa Bay versus the Rams, I agree. I think that's going to force Matt Stafford to have to throw the ball more because they are quick to abandon the run game, which isn't smart. I mean, you got Sony Michel. You have Cam Akers back. You have, Henderson? Like you have three solid running backs that can potentially make, game-changing plays. You just have to use them. Now, against that Bucs defense, it's going to be difficult, but I wouldn't try to put all of this on Matt Stafford. He finally won a playoff game. This is his first time going into the divisional round. Treat it like a rookie quarterback. Don't make him have to manage everything and force the ball into tight spots when you know it's not going to end well. Mm-hmm. And then obviously I'm going to go with the 49ers over the Packers. And I'm going to try to say this as objectively as possible.
Yeah, right.
No. Hear me out. When has Green Bay really, for the most part, faced an actual formidably decent defensive front like what the 49ers have? You could say maybe the Rams, and they struggled a little bit that game. But the Rams really only have Aaron Donald and Roquan Smith. Von Miller's not bad. It's not like he's completely washed up, but he's not the Von Miller he used to be. If you look at San Francisco, they have Nick Bosa. They have Fred Warner. They have great linebackers. They have great pass rushers. Like, they're going to be in Aaron Rodgers' face, and that offensive line is not the greatest. And then really, and, a lot of people kind of give me crap about it as far as looking at, Green Bay's defense. Green Bay's defense is not great. Like, it's not. Like, if you were to tell me what is Green Bay's strengths? Offense. What is their weakness? It's always been defense. They have not had a good defense in 11 years. It's going to continue to stay that way. And I think if they treat it a little bit better, like how they did against Dallas, do a lot of running the ball, do a lot of those trick plays, a lot of play action plays, use Debo in 30 million different ways, and use George Kittle as a wide receiver, I think San Francisco can go in and potentially get the upset. This is probably going to be the only one I'm going to give a score for. I'm going to go 28-27 49ers.
Wow. Now, I will say to talk on your Green Bay Packers defense thing here, Zadarius Smith, back. He's going to play. Whitney Merciless, another pass rusher, back. He's going to play. Jair Alexander for the first time in, over a month, looking like he's going to play. I mean, that defense, as mediocre as they've been, they are getting some health back just in time. And I do think that rest really helped them out. I mean, Green Bay being able to know that they had that bye week and just kind of set those guys to the side. This is going to be a game where they're going to come after Jimmy G because, much like we talked about with Stafford, I think if you put pressure on Jimmy G, he can absolutely throw that ball away.
Yeah. And I think if you're Kyle Shanahan, he knows this. Like, this is probably, to me, other than him getting to the NFC Championship, this is probably going to be one of his biggest kind of prove-it games. And I think the same thing for Jimmy G. I think Jimmy G is coming into this thinking, this is going to be my last game as a 49er, and I need to prove that I'm still a good enough quarterback. Now, I did hear a random rumor to kind of throw this in there that, he might be the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers next year while they're trying to find an in-between guy. Because you think about it, who do you really have an NFL free agency that you trust? Like, yep, this is going to be my guy. Jimmy G's kind of the best pick of the litter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and with what they have, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing to go. Dustin said for this comment, they're ranked 28th against the run with or without these guys. Rodgers is 6-8 in the playoffs since winning the Super Bowl. He's not great on the big stage. Okay, I mean, even as much as I don't like Rodgers, yes, he's 6-8. I will say the dude can consistently get to the NFC Championship.
I was going to say, yeah.
Time.
I was saying, can I? Since my name was invoked, I'll answer this. Yes, this is not the big stage yet, Dustin. If this was the NFC Championship game, I would absolutely agree with you. And at that time, he would probably be 7-8 in the playoffs. Since then, but the whole point of it is if he chokes the NFC playoff or the NFC Championship game, absolutely, you're right. They were 28th against the run. That's fine. I'm not sure San Francisco is going to be able to depend on the run like they have before because that secondary of San Francisco is not very good and they're beat up. And if they can't get to Aaron Rodgers, if Bakhtiari is back, if Adams has a game, if Valdez-Scantling is back, if Adam Lazard, all these other players, and Green Bay is able to control, San Francisco's not going to be able to establish their run game. Now, should they still be worried about Debo and Kittle? Of course they should be. But, to me, this isn't the game that tarnishes Aaron Rodgers' legacy. Like, if they go out and lose this, it's a big deal because they're the number one seed. But if they go to another NFC Championship game and lose again at home, then that's what we're talking about. But to me, this game isn't on the big stage yet.
I don't know. I mean, I agree. I don't think it's on the big stage. I do think it hurts Aaron if he loses this thing. I think it hurts Aaron if he doesn't go to the Super Bowl. Now, if he loses the Super Bowl, okay, you might have some leniency with that. But if you don't even make it to the Super Bowl, that to me that is completely tarnishes Aaron Rodgers' legacy no matter what. Like, now if he goes and wins another ring, okay, you maybe. But you took a team to the NFC Championship 3 straight years and you lost all 3.
That's a big deal, yeah.
I mean, that's and not really a shot to Buffalo fans. It's like losing the 4 Super Bowls in a row. You're just like, how do you do that?
It's actually like Donovan McNabb going to those NFC Championship games and not doing it. I mean, it's more like that. You can't even, if you're not even getting to the Super Bowl. I mean, it's just, I just don't think this is the legacy-defining moment for Aaron Rodgers in this game. And yes, of course, but I think that defense can play. Packers had Favre and Rodgers for 32 years, have 2 rings to show for it. It is a joke. Well, that's a discussion for another day, but it is a joke when you have those 2 guys. And one team I think you should keep an eye out for Jimmy Garoppolo, depending on who they hire as their head coach. I think you need to keep an eye on Houston. I think Jimmy G, with some of their weapons down there, a bridge quarterback, if you take a quarterback high or wait a year, depending on what they get in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes, because Caserio has said that he's not going to be on the team more than likely next year. I think it's not a quarterback-heavy draft. The next year is looking like it. So if you get a guy like Jimmy G to just kind of move the franchise slowly in the right direction with a first-year head coach, maybe that's a spot that makes sense too.
Yeah, I don't know, though. I mean, because by the looks of it, the Texans went and got Davis Mills, and to be honest with you, compared to last season with rookie quarterbacks, other than Mac, he was the best-looking quarterback out of the draft.
He looked very good.
He was, but I want to bring in a veteran, much how they expected Tyrod Taylor to be that guy. I want to bring in a guy to push Davis Mills, and I think Jimmy G might be that guy.
But do you think – because really, if you think about it, that's kind of the situation Jimmy G's in right now. Like, they got his replacement, and I think if Jimmy goes to a team, it would essentially be the same thing. Like, hey, you're going to be kind of the buffer guy for the young dude. So just know you may or may not continue to have the starting job. And I think for Jimmy, he's like, hey, I'm done being a backup. I was with that for Tom. Like, I know I have an injury history, but I'm going to prove myself, which, most quarterbacks are going to. So to me, I think he wants to go to a team, say, Pittsburgh would probably be looking at it, Pittsburgh, maybe even Washington. Carolina. Like, hey, I want to go and I don't have to look over my shoulder and worry about some young buck that they've drafted replacing me in my spot. Because, you think that's essentially what he did for San Francisco. Because once they let go of Kaepernick, who did they have at quarterback? Bunch of rotating nobodies. Like, they didn't have anybody.
Yeah, but I think he also showed this year that he's not afraid of the challenge. I mean, Trey Lance was going to come in and, he's the smartest quarterback to come out in 20 years. And this kid with only 10 career starts, he knows how to break down all these plays. He couldn't stay healthy. He couldn't learn the playbook. Like, Jimmy's like, hey, I'm still a professional quarterback. I went to a Super Bowl. So I agree that I like Davis Mills. I actually thought he was the best rookie this year ahead of Justin Fields. And I love Justin Fields, but I don't know. Just a place like Houston maybe just is somebody to keep an eye on. That's just my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
I think Jimmy's career is basically going to be this kind of buffer thing. I think he's the Tyrod Taylor, really. That's what his role is going to be, is he's going to come in, fill a quarterback for a couple of years. And again, unless he goes out there and wins the Super Bowl with whatever team he gets to, I don't think there's really teams that's going to be, okay, you're a guy for the next 5, 6, 7 years. And fair or unfair, I just think that's the reality of his situation. The sooner he accepts that, I think the sooner he's going to find a little bit more success in that type of role.
Plot twist: Jimmy Garoppolo goes to Cleveland, takes Cleveland to a Super Bowl.
Oh,
I'd love it.
That would be awesome. I would be super happy if he did that. All right, gents. Well, it has been fun. Been another episode of the Hoosier Huddle. 2 weeks in a row, I've been able to make it, which for me is a lot. I'm proud of myself. Like, I deserve an award just for that, like, personally. But that's just me. See, thank you. I appreciate that from you guys. I do.
What are we naming this award? What are we naming this one? Who's got the best attendance? That's what we got to find out. The best attendance award.
It's tied between you and Joe currently. Because when you
Joe
came
McDonald,
on the show, that kind of reset
award.
everything. But realistically, it's Joe.
Joe McDonald attendance award goes to Tony for the week. That's what we're doing right here.
So I am the AC Green honorary member of the Perfect Attendance Award.
All right, gents. Well, it has been fun. Always love hanging out with y'all. Again, catch us again next week. I may or may not be on. We'll see. Catch us again next week on another episode of the Hoosier Huddle. All y'all have a good night. Peace.
Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we making up plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays.